Welcome to the podcast that does more than just discuss. Embodying Spirit unpacks key metaphysical and psycho-spiritual theories through heartful discussion and playful debate, and then gives you applications and exercises to bring these concepts into your own life. Isabel Almeida, wellbeing coach, and Tārā Love, healing arts facilitator and ceremony guide, have been on the conscious healing train for 40 years between them, studying a range of modalities from yoga and somatic healing to community engagement and philosophy. As best friends, co-creators, dynamic mothers, and dreamers of a better way to live, they have been seeking to live in conscious community for a long time. This is a collection of the conversations around consciousness, connection, and community they've been having for many years. The duo draw on a vast range of theories and schools of thought, claiming the sacred feminine space of relationality between many influences from Hermeticism and Vedic scripture to quantum physics to shamanism and beyond. Also claiming their deeply intuitive inner knowing. They share these deep chats, ideas, and debates openly, bringing new embodied perspectives to ancient wisdom. Each episode begins with a discussion, leading into an immersive exercise and a guided meditation. They share these vital ideas and tools in practical and grounded ways to inspire waves of self-empowered awakening in the world at a time when we need it most. We really hope you enjoy.
Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Embodying Spirit, episode 5, which is Everything is a Reflection of the Condition of Your Own Heart, Non-judgement and Responsibility for Self. So where are we? Where are we in this meander through our thoughts and feelings about the world? I guess we've got to this point of understanding in previous episodes that an increase in awareness, know thyself, that's kind of what we've been talking about, right? And an increased awareness increases our understanding, which increases the amount of light in our lives, our enlightenment. And the unawareness is where the darkness comes from. Our unawareness, our lack of understanding, that's where the darkness and the shadow is. And that it is all us. We are the light and the dark. We are the shadow. We are the beautiful. But it is all us. And in the beautiful, beautiful words of Patanjali, which is what we've stolen from for this episode title, everything is a reflection of the condition of your own heart, which is, I had it written above my sink for many years because I find it a deeply powerful lesson. And it kind of follows on from, I think it's episode 2 that we talk about mind creating matter. So we are co-creating everything through mind. But that also we are all observing from our individual perspective. And therefore, everything that we are observing, and when we talk about observing here, I'm not talking about the kind of all-seeing observer that we're trying to, or we're attempting to find in meditation as we peel back the layers. But for most of the time, we're in our individual lives observing from our individual perspective, from the perspective of our lived experience. And that is unique and beautiful and individual and not therefore absolute truth, but our individual perspective. And therefore it is simply a reflection of our own vibration. And as we kind of absorb and live this understanding more and more, that everything is simply a reflection of the condition of our own heart, everything that we are observing, everything that we are experiencing becomes a beautiful teacher for us to understand that it is a reflection of our own vibration, that it is a way of seeing what is on the inside. And also this relates to the Hermetic law of correspondence, right? The Hermetic Principal of Correspondence, as above, so below, but as within, so without. Whatever is happening on the inside, we see reflected on the outside. Everything is a reflection of what is inside.
And that our vibration is not still as well, so that, our vibration can change as well. So we can see things from different perspectives depending on where we are, whether we're feeling loved up, then how we interpret the world will be through that vibration. And if we're feeling down on ourselves or down on life, then we interpret the world through that perspective, so that it's changing as well, that it's not still.
I remember one of the deepest teachings that you gave me when you were first coaching me was like, that nothing's changed on a day-to-day basis. It's like one day I'd be feeling good about things and another day I'd be feeling really shit about things. And you're like, but has anything actually changed in terms of the physical reality? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I haven't lost or gained any weight. I haven't lost or gained any qualifications. I haven't lost or gained really any money, to an extreme extent, right? Like, I haven't better or worse at what I'm doing in my life, because it could be within the course of a week, right? But on one day I'm like, the world's amazing, everything's great, and the next day I'm like, oh my god, it's also shit, and it's like, that's just because of where I'm seeing from.
And even within moments, right? So if we're in a state of anxiety and then we do deep breathing and then we bring ourselves into more stillness, then the way that we interpret the situation is different, because we've had a different somatic experience within, and we're feeling different about the situation. So it's something that we can really influence as well when we understand just how responsible we are for what we're interpreting.
Yeah, I love that, because I think there's two or a multi-layered way of looking at it as well. Like, everything's a reflection of the condition of our own heart can also sound really final, like your heart is in a set state, like, oh, you have a rotten heart, so your world will be rotten, kind of thing, but like you've highlighted so beautifully, is like your heart can change state on a daily. And then there's also a kind of underlying state as well, right, which is maybe more to do with our upbringing and those more embedded patterns, which we'll talk a bit more about through the episode. But we can shift the condition of our own heart on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, like you say, through somatic practices, through doing some breath work. You can shift it instantaneously. And at the same time, there are other more stubborn parts of the heart that might be seeing things. And that's, I guess, where we kind of maybe can get even more confused as to what is real and what is true, right? Because those things that we see constantly as bad or wrong or not cool, that we think, oh, well, that's the truth, right? But maybe it's just that part of our heart is reflecting in a kind of more constant way, because it's something that's more embedded from childhood, right?
Yeah, if we never come into the awareness that we have the power to see differently, then we can just continue to go on and see the same. But once we become aware and we start to look back at ourselves and actually say, why am I seeing like this? Then there's room and space for another idea and something else to come out of that. So, it's really about how much awareness we bring to our lives. It depends on how much we change. And I remember with David Hawkins, that scale, and they were saying people generally don't change their vibration, like it barely moves. I think it was like 40 points or something on the scale. Whereas, of course, somebody who's doing that work and who's on the path of know thyself, there can be an increase that, really moves them from, the fear state to love state, and that can become their borderline.
And that's where that kind of playful investigation needs to come from, right? Like all of this stuff, I think it's really important for us to reiterate and sorry if it feels like we're hammering things home, but I think it's also because we're trying to avoid the sort of spiritual bypassing as well, and the kind of, oh, it's so easy, we can just be enlightened like this, and it's like, yes, okay, we can shift overnight, and at the same time, generally, there's no quick fix, there's no silver bullet, it all takes work. And that's why we have to constantly embrace this understanding that there's no destination, but it's a playful investigation, right? Of like, okay, why is my heart reflecting in this way? Like, what's this about? Let me explore that. Let me think about or feel into where that comes from, and to embrace a lot of these practices that we're talking about and these somatic practices that we have to be able to work with shifting those patterns of ways of seeing.
Yeah, and we often talk about the layers of the onion. So it's a constant, repeat as well of becoming aware and then unaware and aware and unaware, and then that gap becoming smaller and smaller until we have the awareness of our unawareness. And then we can find some real change.
Yeah. And it's definitely not linear, as you imply as well. It's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, right? As you become more aware of the different layers.
It can be a little bit frustrating. Once you know that that's the case, then you're like, okay. No, I really am still moving forward in this awareness, and it's great that we can keep having reflected back to us the parts of ourselves that are still in the shadow as well. So it is a great journey to be on. That brings us so much reward.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to the basics, so I don't lose anyone, in terms of just this idea of everything being a reflection of the condition of your own heart. I think such a simple way of looking at it is, what is it that you observe when you're walking down the street? You can have 2 people walking down the same street, and one of them is going to see the beautiful leaves on the trees changing colour and notice the child that's laughing, with their mum, and see the beauty in the world, right? And another one is going to notice the horrible polluting smells of the cars and the dog poo on the side of the road, and where we put our attention, that's where we create our reality as well, right? But it's also like what is in your heart, and maybe even the same person walking down the street on 2 separate days is going to be drawn to one or other of those things based on how they are feeling. And that's why it can become a really beautiful reflection, right? And once we accept that it's not a fixed reality, I think I just said this, but I find it so magical. Actually, it's like, oh, I have the power to shift this. It can be quite scary, but it's also beautiful. It's like I can choose to focus on the beautiful trees and the beautiful children. I don't have to be in the victim state of like, oh, I live in such a shitty place with all of this horrible stuff, right? Like I can choose how to create my reality based on where I put my attention. And in that, I can shift it, I mean, I think
it's like,
go on.
I was going to say, it's like the difference between the pessimist and the optimist. Like we all know people that are pessimistic, and they'll be always talking about life as if everything is going to go wrong, compared to the optimist is like tomorrow's a day that can bring joy, and and when we observe them, it's the one that's optimistic tends to enjoy life more, and it's not that there's something that's changed in the world. Nothing's even been created in the world. It's just their awareness and the way that they're seeing the potential of the world that's allowing them to enjoy life more as well. So, of course, just having that awareness changes everything. That, once you realize, oh, actually, I'm what's coming first, and then you start to work from there, life automatically becomes better even before anything's happened.
That it's an inside out thing rather than an outside in, right? That's
definitely
it. I mean, bless her heart. I always think about my gran in this situation, who, I have to send so much love to as well, because, the beautiful thing about having children and being able to look back in your ancestral line, and it's the only ancestral line I have to look back on of the 4 that I come from, but, to see her, see my mum, see me, see my daughter, and to see the evolution is always so beautiful, and she is a wonderful yet very difficult woman, to say the least. And I've had to do a lot of healing around understanding her and why she is the way she is and where she's come from, which again, I know we talk about a lot, but it's just important to acknowledge, right? There's no blame ever in this work. It's all just about understanding and knowing ourselves more. But, it's like she's the lady that sits, bless her heart, she's 92 now, and she sits in her chair and she can't see very well, and she needs a carer to come in, and everything's shit basically, bless her, in her mind, and in her story. People don't visit her enough. She's in pain. Her legs hurt. She doesn't have her family around her all the time caring for her. She's not loved enough. She can't read the paper anymore. And and she thinks she's being dealt this really shitty hand, right? But you can easily see also from another perspective that there's this woman who can afford to have a carer come in and look after her 4 times a day, you know, who is able to be in her own home at the age of 92 and be cared for, that has made it to 92, that has had the ability to live such a rich and generous life as well, whose family still come and visit her. She has visitors like 3 or 4 times a week at least, you know, people that respect her, people of all generations that think she's an amazing woman that come and see her, you know, but it's just never enough. And that's something that we've also, and this isn't something that just happened since she became 92, by the way. But it's like whatever there is, and she has had this amazing life, it's just never enough. There's always, you know, people don't love her enough, people don't have enough to give her. She's not loved enough, she's not enough, she's not enough, she's not enough, which is essentially what we're all dealing with, right? But you can see how it's not about the reality, it's not about the exact circumstances, because someone else in those circumstances could feel really, really lucky.
And what's also interesting about your gran is where, you know, she tells the story of how she started her life. And, you know, she started off in a boarding school. And she speaks of that story actually with, you know, she's quite heartfully in reality. She talks about it as if it was, you know, a nice experience, and that she was treated really well. And
yeah, she was
there'd be
sent
somebody
to
else
school at 3, by the way.
Yeah, and there'd be somebody else who was telling the story of, like, you know, and in fact I spoke to someone the other day saying the story of poor them, about they grew up in a boarding school and they were mistreated, and, you know, and how hard it was for them and how that affected their life because they couldn't see their mother. So it just shows you that it's not a straightforward experience as well, you know.
And yet we can understand that, you know, and what's helped me to understand my grandma and her way of seeing everything is not enough has been because she was sent away at 3 years old. And so obviously to that small child to be sent away at that time is a massive message of, you know, you're not needed or not wanted or not loved. However much her parents may have loved her, that was also just the habit of the time. You know, that's what people did. Yeah.
And that's what's quite interesting, is because she didn't feel the sadness of that separation, she now has the sadness of her lived experience now as a result of that. Whereas if I think about somebody like my mother, who also went through a hard time with her husband and domestic violence, alcoholism, and all the rest of it, and she speaks of herself as initially being a victim to that. But now, if you were to listen to her, she always tells the story of her, how strong she was and how she overcame, and the success that she is now. So it's almost that, you know, it's flipped from, you know, because she's understood herself in one way, she can now understand herself in another. And your gran, it's almost the opposite. So it's just interesting.
And it's also interesting how, like, as our hearts change and grow, like it also just shows you the kind of the looseness of time, as in, like, you know, we can change timelines right now. All timelines exist right now, right? So we can empower ourselves in our past through the healing now, right? So something that we might have reflected in our heart as bad or horrible, you know, in our past, we can heal ourselves in. And that's not, again, I really have to stress, that's not about like turning everything that happened in our lives into you know, an amazing thing. It's not about sort of spiritually bypassing or washing everything with this state of like glorious sparkle, you know, everything was amazing, you know, I was abused, so it was so important, you know. It's like it's the subtlety of it, right? It's recognizing how everything also shaped us and everything was part of this beautiful matrix of who we are, and the gifts that the adversity gives us, right? Because that also makes me think of that beautiful metaphor of the butterfly, you know, that like the butterfly can only have strong enough wings pushing them out of the cocoon, and you might think that you're helping the butterfly, right, by removing the cocoon, but then its wings aren't strong enough to be able to fly. You know, so in the same way with ourselves, it's like we have to understand that those adversities that we've been through in life were our cocoon that we had to push out of to strengthen us to become the people that we are. And so that's how we can then also see different things in our life as having positive outcomes. And yeah, I don't know if we just went off piste a bit, but I think yeah, what we kind of like been like the summary of that is also this idea that as we said before, like everything is an inside job. Like we are able to observe the outside reality through this filter of our heart, of where we are. That we can shift our understanding of reality and even co-create our reality based on what's happening inside of us. But also we can use the way we see it in the world as a reflection of what is happening within us. That then what I really love this phrase that like the other particularly is a really great way to learn, right? Like, so whatever we see in the other or in the outside world that we dislike or that we find difficult is actually something within ourselves that we are rejecting and we don't like. So the other becomes a reflection of our rejection. I like that phrase.
Yeah, and the thing is it can be so difficult because when we're the ones, so, you know, if we're full of toxicity and then we're experiencing a situation in the world as toxic, it's very difficult, though, for us to say that's because of me, because we're in the state of being what we're seeing, right? Like, so we can almost get trapped into our own awareness. So you know, and that's the thing. So, for instance, it's like, oh, you know, if you're that's why it's so important to have clean diets and clean thoughts and to work in this way of being able to become super aware of, you know, to become clear within, so that we can become super aware of what's going on and actually be able to question it. Otherwise, yeah, we'll just become the victim of, you know, and actually. And I was just saying just yesterday to somebody, actually, like, of course, if you weren't in this negative state at this point of time, what would you be saying? You wouldn't be talking about you know, you wouldn't be criticizing. You wouldn't be talking about the situation as if it was hopeless. You'd be the person saying, you know, that there was this opportunity and that, you know, you'd be seeing it completely different. But from this state, of course, that's why you're saying what you're saying. That's why you're pushing back at me in this way. And at which point they were able to at least have an awareness that there's a them that would see this different. But
yeah, and I guess that's
what I'm saying?
Totally, and that's one of the divine paradoxes that I think we keep coming back to as well. That as much as, like, you know, what we're experiencing is a reflection of what's inside, whatever we're ingesting is also what's creating that state inside, right? So whether that is you know, violent television or acidic foods or alcohol or, you know, excessive recreational drug use or as we've talked about a lot already, those primary childhood experiences that create a normalcy of violence or abuse or, you know, negative states within us. Like all of that stuff that we're ingesting, both in our childhood, but also on a daily basis. You know, like if you're living in a war zone, for example, and experiencing hectic imagery all the time, like obviously that has an impact. And it's going to be very difficult if you're receiving toxicity all day, every day, which is in and out of your control, depending, you know, that's also something that we have to be aware of. You know, a child growing up in an abusive home doesn't have much choice in that, right? Somebody living in a war zone doesn't have much choice in that. Somebody who's choosing to watch a whole bunch of horror movies on Netflix and take, you know, like, I don't know, drink excessive amounts of alcohol at the weekend has more choice, although maybe there's also, there will definitely be reasons as to why they're making those choices based in their childhood probably as well. But the point is that it's that paradox. We have to understand that what we're putting in is creating that toxicity within us that then we're seeing reflected outside of ourselves as well. So it's a difficult one. And that's kind of what you're saying as well, right?
Yeah, and that's why we have to get rid of the judgment as well, because it can be so difficult. It's not, we're not just saying, oh, well, then, you can just have a different experience and, it's your fault that you're experiencing these things, because it's not your fault, but it is your thought loops. It's what, potentially it can be what you've experienced, as you say, it's what you've experienced before that is allowing you to have these thoughts about yourself or the world, which means that you're then attracting that to you because you're not expecting more. If you go out into the world and you're going out and you're going to find a partner, for instance, and you were used to seeing your mother or your father abused, whichever, and this was your experience that relationships are abusive, and then as a result of being in that environment, you were also spoken to in a certain tone, or you were in a certain derogatory way. Then of course, when you're now going into a relationship, that's what you're used to. So when you have someone, they come along and they're really loving, you're not going to be thinking, oh, that's the one for me, because that's going to seem like really uncomfortable to you.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, oh no, why they, no, they must be fake, or whatever it is. I mean, I don't know, but whatever it is that's going on in your head, you're going to reject that.
Like, bless her heart, and for all good reason, but my mum brought me up to not trust men. All men are bastards was literally a mantra that I imbibed. So no wonder I'm still struggling to connect to my love. I know that I'm doing that healing, like ancestrally, like around men, to be able to welcome in the love that is for me. Yeah.
Of course. And, it's not that you haven't been able to attract relationships, but there have been relationships that mirror and reflect what you were told. So there would have been, relationships that you're like, no.
Just no. And even learning that they were not for me and toxic has been a huge part of my healing journey as well. To not accept, oh, well, if all men are bastards, then, obviously it's totally normal to be in a relationship with someone behaving in that way. It's like, no. So yeah, it's a huge learning, and it's deeply embedded, as we keep saying. All that stuff that you got from like early childhood is so hard to, I mean, I don't want to make it sound impossible, because it's not impossible. And I do believe I've done a huge amount of healing around this specific thing. And but it takes a lot of awareness and work to unroot those thought loops, right? To really like weed them out, as it were, to identify them, to rewire desire. That's what your amazing work is all about.
Yeah, because you have to be able to really stand, I wouldn't say in your power, because it is in your power to be able to be responsible for yourself. And actually, once you understand that it's all a reflection of your own heart, then you can really look at something and say, how am I participating in this?
And you really want to resist it. Like, it's so easy to blame, right? Like, it'd be so easy for me to be like, oh yeah, well, there's just been all these fucking horrible men in my life, and they're, poor me, like, why is it that I just keep getting all these, and that reality stands up to a lot of people. But at the end of the day, and it can be like, on the one hand, it's easy, quote unquote, because it's like, that doesn't mean I have to look at myself then, right? Like, okay, all men and the patriarchy, and they've just been brought up badly because they've been given an easy ride. It's all a narrative that still exists, right? But does it actually help at the end of the day? No. Does it shift the patterns? No. What's empowering is for me to understand, oh, I'm also part of this shadow dance. I'm also part of creating this, because this is what I believe. And this is what I see in the world. I see all these men who are bastards around me. Okay, that is a reflection of the condition of my own heart. That's what I have co-created in this reality for myself. Okay, and I don't have to blame myself for that. It's not about switching the blame from them to me. It's just about me, in fact, giving a lot of love to that inner child. That child, inner child, my child, the me that, because all the timelines still exist, you know, the child, Katie, because I was Katie when I was a child, so I can never call her Tārā, because Tara's my middle name anyway. But little Katie, you know, who was fed that narrative. You know, it's also not about blaming my mum, because I also know where she got that from as well. Blame, just, there's no place for blame in the, you know, in the true work of spirit and healing. It's just about recognizing, oh, okay, that's where that comes from. Now I can empower myself to co-create a different reality where there are men that hold me and support me and love me in a healthy way. And that's scary. It is scary, because then, you know, but it's like, yeah, but it's also super empowering and amazing.
And obviously it's quite difficult when you don't have that framework as well, because you're, you know, it's like, well, where do I start?
Examples to work from. But that's why we're so gifted with an imagination. You know, that's what's so beautiful about the human magic, that we have an imagination, and we can, and you can transcribe as well, you know, like you can say, okay, well, I don't necessarily have a living example of a man like that, but I do have of a mother, okay, like now, and there's stories I can tell, and I can imagine what that might look like. And I can look at other relationships that I admire, and I can look at, and I can, you know, maybe, and for a while I used to say, oh, there's none that I like, but it's like, okay, but I can take this from that relationship that I like, and this from that relationship that I like, and I can stitch that together into a beautiful idea, and I can work on bringing that reality into my heart. And that's where the magic alchemy of manifestation happens, which I think is also well, we've talked about it a little bit in other episodes, but I don't want to go too deep into that because it is a whole other thing. But it's like, that's where I can start to really work with creating that reality in my heart. And I suppose it is about this episode, because if everything's a reflection of the condition of my own heart, then if in my heart I hold the vibration of that beautiful man and that beautiful relationship, then eventually it will manifest itself in reality.
Yeah. And it's not just about that beautiful man. It's about me being beautiful in relationship as well, because I think that that's the thing with that way of thinking, is that, you know, we also have to outgrow the us that was stuck in that imagination of other being not enough, and how we then interacted with other because we thought they were not enough. You know, so what I mean, to be clearer, is that, you know, I've known people to be in great relationships, and there'll be a lady and she'll say, like, you know, he's my king, right? And to somebody who's not had great relationships and that hasn't been modeled to them, that can seem a bit intimidating, or a bit, you know, they can reject the idea that someone's going to be my king, and then because they can see that in a negative way, like he's going to power over me and I'm going to have to be subservient to him. But to the person actually saying that's my king, they're seeing that really empowered. They're like, I'm his queen, he's my king, we stand together, you know. And that's something that you have to really expand into if you've never had that idea presented to you. So it's learning how to, as I say, outgrowing your thoughts on other, but actually also growing into something and blossoming into the idea of something that maybe we haven't even thought about that we need to. You know, that's the shadow, our shadow that hasn't outgrown the one that's only equal to disruptive or toxic relationships.
100%, 100%. I think that's a really important point, and that this understanding of the shadow dance, that we are both equally responsible for a relationship where you're both a reflection of each other's rejection, right? Like, it's never one-sided. And I think a really good example of this that you might initially be like, no, what? Like, is the example of like the bully and the bullied, right? Because it's so easy to be like, oh, that horrible bully, you know, how could they be so mean to the, you know, often to my lovely child, or to whatever, you know, that child. And I mean, it's quite an extreme example, but I think it's a really good one to use. That actually, the only that they are both in that relationship in a space of judging their self as weaker, or of lesser than. They're both playing in to a power polarity, to a game, to an understanding of weak and strong, right? Of like that, there has to be a vibration within that person. I was using the example of a child, but of course, let's not get it twisted. Bullies can happen in and out of school, any age, any demographic. But let's keep the classic kind of school bully situation. But that child has to be holding a vibration of being lesser than, of being weak, of seeing something as stronger than them, as somebody as stronger than them, as better than them, which of course they've inherited somewhere from their own childhood experiences as well. So again, no fault or blame. But the bully is also in that power play as well, and probably also has been in the space of being seen as weaker and lesser than in a family dynamic. Let's also not get it twisted. That's normally where bullies are born as well, right? And they've had to defend themselves, and they're just playing. Both of them are playing the negative and the positive polarity. I don't mean good and bad. I just mean like the yin and the yang of that power dynamic. They are both playing into a shadow dance, into a relationship of better than, stronger than, weaker than, worse than, right? And if
that's right.
Go on.
Yeah, because actually I know the story of this. Like there was these two children and it's actually a real story. One of them was bullying the other, and they both had daddy issues. Actually, is what it was. Is both of them were feeling disempowered in the home. One because they had no relationship with their dad, and that was the one that was being bullied, and the other one was because they were in the house with their dad, and their dad was aggressive, and so obviously he was the aggressor was the one that was he was the one that was having the dad be aggressive to him in the house. He was then the aggressor and bullying this other boy. And then the boy was being submissive because, he was obviously feeling weak, having not had this relationship and with his father and feeling the lack of that.
And can I just say, though, it could also have gone the other way, because the one who didn't have the father around might have felt that they had to step up to be aggressive in the family, right? Like, and the one that had the aggressive father around could have been submissive because they felt like they didn't have a voice because they'd been so bullied by their own father. Do you know what I mean? So it's not even that straightforward. It's like, who knows exactly why we interpret the trauma in the way that we do, but either way doesn't matter. They're both playing into trauma patterns of there being a better than, a stronger than, a greater than, and a weaker than, lesser than, right? It's the same.
Yeah, totally. And what was quite interesting about the story was the one that was being bullied, he then was able to, through guidance, step into his power and actually step up and, up to the bully. Okay. And they had their moment. And because he was no longer in the thought of being powerless, and through this support was able to be empowered, he was able to overthrow the situation. Basically, they came head to head, but because of that, the other boy backed off. He found his power. The other boy understood that, this wasn't a situation that he could overpower. And they then became friends. Right, like actually, in the long run, a couple of years later, they ended up being friends. So actually, it completely turned around. But for me, as the observer, it was so clear that it was only able to continue for as long as they were agreeing to play.
In the shadow dance,
each was agreeing to play that position.
Exactly.
Yeah, the minute that the bullied, the one that was being bullied had stepped up. And that was it. The power dynamic had fallen, and then that was
like once either of them switches into that belief of unique equality, that we're all equal and we're equally different and equally divine, that there's no, because it's also not about like the bullied then becoming the bullier and like being the shell, but it is about like that just refusing to play the game. I really like that image of kind of like, when we talk about a shadow dance, and it's almost like that person is casting the shadow on you, you know, and it's like, if you can just step aside and let that shadow fall onto the floor, do you know what I mean, and not onto you, if you can step out of the dance, then the dance collapses and there's no dance anymore.
Yeah, because even if that the one that was being bullied then becomes the bully, I mean, then he's still in exactly the same situation. He's not gained any power by that, because he's still just at, you know, he needs the other to keep playing their part for him to play his part. But when they step out into his own power, then that's it. You know, obviously now he's able to move forward regardless. Like, you know, you're not having to look anywhere. You can just be yourself. And in this case, I was going to say, in this case, that's what happened. Do you know what I mean? But I've also known the other cases where people have gone on and they just keep repeating and repeating, and then they've gone on to experience the same things as they've got older as well, still feeling bullied and still having to bully. And it's like, until that person's able to do something different, they'll go on to have that experience in many different forms, whether that be in relationship, at work.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. That's how we know that it's not about, no, they was just a horrible person. Do you know what I mean? Like, that it's not about the outside circumstances, because you can, you know, you can keep that example going. You can take the child, you can change the school, you can change the class, you can change all of the outside circumstances. But until you've changed internally, until they've understood that they are equal, that they are not weaker or lesser, until they've shifted the internal landscape, the heart, and you know, to go back to the original metaphor, like then things aren't going to change. They're just going to repeat. And that repetition, those patterns, that's how we know that we're creating it ourselves. And that's why being able to take time in silent observation, or with friends, hours on the phone with Isabel talking about our patterns, or a therapist, or, you know, various modalities, but taking time to observe those patterns and being honest about them, that's where we can start to really heal, because we can see, oh, hang on a minute, this can't just be coincidence that this same thing is happening again and again and again in my life. It's not bad luck. There's no such thing as coincidence, you know. It's congruency. It's because it's a lesson that's being taught to me that I'm seeing again and again repeated, because it's a reflection of what's inside. It's what I'm co-creating. It's what I'm attracting to me.
Yeah, and that's the great thing, that actually you know, that the power is all in our hands. I mean, none of this, we don't have to be a victim to anything. And and I suppose just having that awareness can really just empower you. So
yeah, and I think it's also really important as part of that, as well as part of that empowerment, to accept that everything is a reflection of us, and therefore that all of the darkness that we observe, you know, quote unquote darkness that we observe outside of ourselves, in the world, in others, in various forms, has to be existing within us for us to be able to see it, for us to be able to observe it. You know, like they say, it takes one to know one, right? It takes darkness to know darkness. Whatever it is that we're observing, that is the only reason we can observe it, is because we hold it within ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to act with the same level of, extremity, or that we're going to display it in exactly the same way, right? But it's all part of the same vibration that we hold within us. And it's okay, because as we've also covered in previous episodes, it's all spirit. We are the dark, we are the light, we are it all. And it's only when we separate or reject those parts of us, when we judge those parts of us, or judge those parts of other, which is what we're often doing. Oh, they're bad, that's rubbish, that's shit, this what, that's when the pain comes. Because we see it as wrong, as outside of ourselves. And I don't want to go into that too much, because we have covered this already. But and you can go back to episodes 1 and 2 to hear more on that. But yeah, we do empower ourselves by accepting that it's all within us.
Yeah, now I remembered what I was going to say, which is that actually it is the case that, it's changing what's within that changes what's without. It's like nothing had to change on the outside for your experience to change. You're the one that has the power to create what you want. If you're around angry people, right, you can be like, why is everybody so angry? Why are they doing this to me? But, you have to go inside and say, actually, yeah, okay, so what is it in me that's attracting this? Do I have a problem with anger? Like, because
yeah, maybe you're rejecting anger within yourself, or maybe you are angry within yourself, which is often the same one and the same thing. But exactly,
yeah, maybe you're pushing it down.
It's like, interesting, anger's coming up a lot. What is that? Why is it coming up? And for me,
yeah,
I mean, and that's the thing. That's
maybe
what I was just
you.
thinking. I just got this image quite strongly. Sorry, it just came through. And it's that thing of like, if we push things away from ourselves, right? So that's not me, that's ugly, that's horrible, that's got nothing to do with me, push it away. Then we have no ability to work with it. And, I was going to say control, but control is also a bit of a dodgy term, but just as in like, we have no ability to understand it, to know it, right? And if we embrace it all and say it's all, it's all shades of light, and it's all part of us, I'm doing a sort of embracing gesture as I do this. It's all part of me. It's all. Then we can look at it. We can observe it. We can assimilate it, and we can heal it as well. And we can explore it, and it can become also. I mean, it's not always going to feel fun, so let me not paint this with a rainbow brush, the rainbow sparkle brush coming out. It's all so much fun. No, it's not always fun. It can be bloody uncomfortable. Anger's a great example of that, right? Like, shit, why is this anger finding me? Am I angry? Kids are always a great litmus test in that, right? Like, I'm like, I'm not angry. And my daughter's like, yeah, right, mum.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you can
I can be angry. There is anger. And then if I don't think I'm angry, but then it comes out in certain primal circumstances, what's that saying about my opinion of anger? Then I'm rejecting anger. Then I don't think anger is a good thing, and what's that and why? And the minute I reject it, it becomes dangerous, becomes suppressed. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, you can often see it with parents, the unawareness they have when they say, my child is just so pushy, or my child is just so much, they're always wanting this or that, or,
I can't refuse them. They're just so, they take the piss. They just have to give them everything. I just have to give them everything they want. Otherwise, they just don't, go on.
Yeah. They talk about as if, the child was created out of, just nowhere. Like, not that they are part of why their child treats them this way or believes what they believe. It's like, their lack of boundaries that creates this child that's just, that overbearing in their own words. And it's like, they're not seeing it as, it's because I'm not valuing me. They're seeing it as, they're just so self-absorbed, and they'll complain about that. And it's like, no. You're also able to come in, and if you just started saying, no, not today, or just, change the way that you were interacting, the way you valued yourself in it, you'd see that they would have more awareness and consideration for you, because you'd be having more consideration and awareness for you. But if you're always going to push yourself and say, no, that their needs are more important than mine, and then you're going to complain about them, it's like, well, you can see why you're unhappy, because you're just creating a situation where, you're never content. So
yeah, they are the clearest mirrors, I think, the children, right? It's amazing.
Definitely.
And I mean, I think we're always just healing our not enoughness, right? Like our separation. We're always just on this journey of, as we've talked about, like when we come incarnated and we forget that we're all spirit, and then we're in this individual form, and then there's just these parts of ourselves that we don't like and we don't reject, and we don't feel like we're good enough, and we don't feel like we're smart enough, and we don't feel like we're beautiful enough, and they're, and it's just this endless, and I like to say that in a beautiful way, an endless dance, just because there is no end point, of coming into an understanding of enoughness. of healing that primary separation wound, that separation from self, that separation from spirit. And, it's the pain that we see both in ourselves, the ugly parts of ourselves, quote unquote, that we don't like, and the ugly parts of the world and the ugly parts of other that we see are simply the parts of us we don't want to integrate or that we struggle to accept. That's just it, right?
Yeah. And we're becoming more conscious of that. See, I think that there was a time when we would have been, there is a time where we would have been just more victims to our situation. But, we're now moving into this awareness that we're having these conversations that actually were a part of what's going on. And, and that's great, because the more we're taking responsibility for ourselves, the more that we're understanding this way of working is, although it means that we're digging more into our darkness, it's also bringing us more into our light.
100%.
So, we're just living in great times of awareness. And, and I think that, I love that. I love the fact that actually, I know for me in relationship that I can say that actually how am I doing this feels really purposeful. And it just helps me, because actually now these relationships that I have with my children, with my partner, with my friends, with my family, becomes ways of waking me up to myself that I wouldn't have. Whereas once upon a time, it would have been, why is he doing that? Or why is she doing that? And that's just way more painful. So yeah, of course, there's a lot of work to be done. It's not the easiest ride when you're saying, oh, actually, I'm responsible here. But
and
it's definitely
it's definitely worth it.
I was going to say, it's just definitely what the world is calling for in order for us to move.
Completely. And I just want to put the caveat on that. Well, first of all, just want to say how much I admire you constantly. I witness you looking at yourself in all of your personal relationships and using it as this divine tool to reflect on the parts of yourself that are still unhealed and unintegrated. And, it's why you're not just one of my closest friends, but also one of my mentors in that. Like, I'm always like, wow, that's beautiful. And simultaneously, I want to just put that caveat on for people, for the listeners, that's not an excuse, therefore, to stay in abusive relationships. It's that paradox. It's like, yes, it does reflect a shadow dance. And I mean, actually, this is something quite close to my heart, because I was in, quite shockingly for myself, because it's like I'd done all this healing and, feeling like, wow, I've done so much healing. And then a couple of years ago, found myself in a deeply toxic relationship, on the verge of domestic violence. And even though it was a deep shadow dance, and I could recognize where the universe was really like screaming, because it's like, have you still not learned this fucking lesson? Like, have you still not learned your self-worth, Tārā? And it was a deep shadow dance. But the answer wasn't to stay in the relationship, because, oh, it's teaching me so much. Like a healthy relationship is also with somebody, particularly I'm talking about romantically, somebody who you can discuss and debate these shadow dances with, and that you have a mutual understanding of that. If one of you doesn't understand that you are playing with shadow dances and you are divine mirrors for each other, then it can become very dangerous, because you can be acknowledging your trauma and your darkness and your patterns to them. But if they're just like, yeah, and that's your shit and I'm perfect, then there's a power imbalance. And that's obviously where it can get dangerous. Obviously that's an extreme example, but I just have to call that, because I think sometimes people can get a bit confused,
And also sometimes it can be really hard when you're in relationship as well, because you can be in relationship and, you're having this shadow dance. And in that moment, it's difficult to know what's you, what's them as well, like as in everyone's playing their part, right? So I think sometimes as well, when you're, if you're having a relationship and it's difficult and you're not finding, you're not finding alignment, you're not finding that you're not finding healing in it. Actually, when you come out of it, having some space can allow for you to see what your own patterns are once you have that awareness. So, you know, I think as well, it's not sometimes about, you know, sometimes it's not in that relationship that you're going to be able to heal that full stop, because you're just not going to be able to see the entirety of it. But just being able to know that, come outside yourself and observe.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say, as much as, you know, we're talking about our self-healing journey, and that's the important thing. And I think it's also important to know that it's not our responsibility to change anyone else as well, right? Or to even to point the finger at their stuff, right? We can only work on ourselves. We only know our own stuff. And at the same time, it's really good to realize and have the ability to observe the fact that what people are putting out is also what's in them. You know, so if people are accusing you of stuff, and again, it's not that it's not like an indicator of your own shadow stuff, but it's like if people are accusing you of something and calling you out on something, that is also a reflection of what's happening within them. Because if we have to know the dark to see the dark, so that's the darkness in them that they're also observing, right? Reflected through you. That is the point, that it is a dance. And one of the like key things that really helped me also with my relationship with my gran is that the way that people speak to you also is the way that they speak to themselves. Right?
Yeah, or the way they've been spoken
both,
to,
right?
as well.
That's how they were spoken to as children. That's how they speak to themselves. And that's why that's coming out in that way. And that can be really healing.
Yeah. And that's why it's really about just embracing compassion for yourself and for everybody else. Because, you know, nobody is doing this. Nobody's trying to hurt people just because that's what they want to do. Actually, you know, people are being hurtful because they're hurting.
Hurt people hurt people.
Hurt people. Yeah. Simple as
and
that.
Course, and of course we are creating pancestral, I was going to say, ancestral parental patterns, right? Ancestral parental patterns, yes. You know, until we recognize these behavior traits within ourselves, until we shift them, we are simply going to replicate them. You know, and our parents probably judged us for things that we found really painful, and they're the things that they judged themselves for because that's what they were judged for. You know, and it's like constantly recurring patterns of pain and judgment. We all know, you know, this story. That continues until we shift it. But also, as you were saying, compassion is so important, and that not just for self, but also for parents and for those that went before us, you know. And that doesn't mean, again, that we have to accept it or to continue to play into that game, but just to understand that that's,
Yeah, and it's funny because it can be so difficult as a parent as well, because you can be looking at your child and you're looking at them thinking, you know, oh, I just want you to be the best you can be. But that can actually make you really critical because you don't realize that you're just looking at all the parts that you can see where you're like, you know, that's what's standing out to you. Oh, that part you need to work on, or that's what you need to work on. And they're then experiencing you as just being critical. But you're thinking you're being empowering, not realizing that that's just something that you picked up from your parent and the way they communicated to you. And it's not, that's why it's such a shadow dance, because you're not seeing that actually, is that positive? Is that loving? Is that compassionate? Do you know what I mean? Like, you just don't understand just how much of yourself is tunneled visioned, you know, in the way that you're experiencing your child, thinking that you're doing something great for them.
And I guess that's where like that kind of new ideas of parenting come in, which are really difficult because I think it is really important to have boundaries, as we kind of sort of alluded to earlier. And that comes from what I need, though, right? Like, I need space, I need respect, I need X, Y, and Z. But actually, I'm kind of unqualified to tell you what you need and how you need to be. Right? Again, it's that thing of like, I need to have my boundaries of what I desire and how I need things to be, but what you need, that's kind of up to you. And again, that comes back to understanding that there is no the truth other than the universal laws. There's no like, this is right, this is wrong. There are just a myriad number of individual perspectives of reality from all of these wondrously unique views. You know, and so that's why, like, your mother's opinion of what you should be is her truth and her unique view based on her unique upbringing and the times and all of these things. And that's her truth, but it's not your truth. And in the same, you know, with one's own children as well, that's not their truth. And that's really difficult to swallow often. But the more we can accept that, whilst also holding our truth for what we need. Right? Because I think that's often what happens with parenting as well. You're like, but I'm having to do this for you and now you don't know. It's like, hang on a minute, but do I have to do this for you? Or is that something that I've just inherited from my parents? Do I really need to do that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be very difficult, because unless you have a mother that's like, full love, then what's going to be reflected back to you is her lack of love for herself is going to be, and that's how she's going to be communicating that. And of course, we're getting better at being aware of that. And, we're definitely looking to empower our children way more than maybe we, back in the day when we could, like, people were smacking their children and thinking that was empowering.
Yeah.
So we've definitely moved far from where we were, but still we're, still on this journey of just opening up our own hearts to ourselves.
And we all have distortions. That's what we were saying, right? Like, no one is in full awareness of enoughness, because that is the deal we made with the devil or with the universe when we came to incarnate in this way. It's the deal we made with our higher selves. It's the deal we made with spirit, which is us. We agreed to come into this separation. And so, as quote unquote healed as we may be, or as in our wholeness as we may believe we are, there's still always going to be distortions, which is why you can never get it right with children at the end of the day, And you have to just have faith that they chose you and you chose them, and that this is the dance that needs to happen for them. Again, you come back to the cocoon, right? You are going to be that cocoon for your children that they're going to have to push against to grow the wings that they need. And that's why we can only be in our own truth, humbly. And it comes back to that idea of humility from the previous episode I think I talked about, right? Like, there are, everyone is equal. And that includes our children. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's so much pain still in the world, because there's still so much pain inside of us. I mean, we'll never be in a peaceful world where we're in one love until we're unified from within.
Why we still have war.
So it's
right?
Exactly, because we're still warring inside. So, it's not hard to see that there's nothing, there are no good and bad. There's no perfection and imperfection. We just are all on the spectrum of knowing ourselves.
Yeah, and that's why I love that. Sorry, I love the to quote myself on my on my ceremony info that I send out. But it's like, the only way to heal the world is to heal yourself. And the best way to do that is in community. But like, I think a lot of certainly the kind of political intellectual class that I come from in my upbringing would think that, I know my gran for certain thinks that the work that I do, or a lot of the ideas that I talk about and all of this stuff, can be very self-indulgent. Oh, it's all about self. What about the world? Why aren't you out there healing the world? And that's also the message I was given by my mum as well. Like, you've got to, you have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, come from a good, middle class, wealthy country background. You need to go out and save the world, heal the world. But it's like, once we understand that it's all a reflection of within, and it's not to say that we don't have compassion for the things that are happening outside of ourselves, but once we understand that it is an inside job, that actually healing ourselves, healing the separation within ourselves, does have a direct impact on healing the separation and the war outside of ourselves. And if everybody was working on loving themselves into wholeness, well, then there wouldn't be any time for war anyway. Because certainly facing war with war doesn't help, as we know, right?
No, definitely. No, that really is it. It's like, we've got to get out of the judgment of ourselves, and that's how we get out of the judgment of others. We've got to get, into we've got to be compassionate with ourselves, and that's how we're more compassionate with others. So it really is know thyself, to therefore know other.
Yeah, and then to know other as self, and then who are we at war with.
Exactly.
And then we're all happy, and everybody has beautiful hearts, and everyone is reflecting beauty all around them. But it's also about enjoying the journey of it, right? Like, that is what, like we say, like, anyone that says, oh, I'm healed, oh, I'm whole, oh, I'm enlightened, you're like, is it now? Is it now?
I can see the world out there and it's not reflecting that.
Exactly. Great litmus test. Yeah. And that's why we're all connected. So that's why you can't be over there saying you're enlightened, because we are all connected. So there's still obviously work to do, babes. If you're sitting in a world full of war, then there's still more work to do on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. If you're sitting there thinking, oh no, I'm perfectly divine, but why are you guys not? No, I'm telling you, you're not seeing things as they are.
Exactly. Because everything is a reflection of the condition of your own heart. Patanjali, you genius.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are we done? Is that it?
I think we are.
Okay, please stay tuned for the beautiful exercise and meditation to follow. You know the score. Sending you so much love, so much warm, beautiful, blissful, divine vibes into your heart space, and lots of love till next time.
Lots of love. Hi there, gorgeous ones. We're back again. Following on from the episode of Everything is a Condition of Your Own Heart, today's exercise is going to be exploring that. So I'm going to be coaching Tārā.
I am the guinea pig.
And let's see what comes. I love the sound effects. Okay, so are we ready, Tārā?
I'm ready to lay myself bare to you, Isabel.
Great. Juicy stuff. Okay.
What you got for me?
Right. So let's start. I want you to think of someone in your life that you really clash with.
Nobody. I'm perfect. I love everybody.
Okay. So
and obviously because it's all a reflection of the condition of my own heart. My heart is pure and beautiful. There's nobody I clash with.
Right.
That's obviously not true. I mean, bless her heart. The first person that comes to mind is obviously, well, not obviously to anyone else, but you know, obviously to me and to you is my beautiful granny, which makes me feel really mean because she's just turned 92 and she is in her second childhood, and now, well, she's still quite difficult. Let me not lie, but also beautiful and. Well, she's what made me who I am. I mean, she really is a reflection of not just the condition of my own heart, but she is my heart. She, you know, she really is. And it's often those closest to us, isn't it? Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, you know, really don't worry about it, because that's what the episode's all about. Like, it really doesn't have so much to do with her, does it? Like, we're actually talking about it from like what's coming up with you.
You sure? Oh God.
So,
what if everybody else also has that same thing, though? Right? Like, it's an interesting one. Sorry, I'm just going to derail as soon as we're starting. I'm just going to make your life hard for you. But like, do you know what I'm saying? How does that work? If everything's a reflection of the condition of my own heart, right? But now there's this difficult character, and it's like, because there's a reputation. People have reputations, you know. Like that person is a difficult person. That's not a lie. That there are those people in the world that we all know to be difficult.
But yeah, okay. But then does everybody know them to be difficult? Is that actually the truth? Because some people are going to be looking at that person and then they're going to be like totally in awe of them. So for them, they're just like, oh my God, she's amazing. And then she may play into that role really well. And then it's just a complete love relationship.
It's true.
Right?
When I first went to, that's one of the moments where I realized that there was work I had to do, because when I went to, the university that my gran was teaching at, it's obviously many years ago, when she was still working, and I met all her students, and they were just like, oh my God, I can't believe you're, I'm not going to name and shame because that would be really mean, but like, you're so-and-so's granddaughter. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that. Like, she's just so amazing. It must be such an honor and a privilege to be her granddaughter. And I was thinking, really? Like, because I've struggled with this lady. Not that I didn't see her greatness in terms of her achievements, but on a personal level, I was like, surely everyone's going to struggle with this person. But it's interesting because the whole family struggle with her, you know. So, go on.
As you said, though, it's those personal relationships that are often the hardest as well. So, That makes a lot of sense. But you know, this is why we're doing this exercise, because really there's always an us that can move our perspective more into love, right? And to see how actually we can embrace this and learn and open our hearts further. So, yeah, bless her.
Bless her.
And bless you.
Thanks.
So what is it about your dear grandma that triggers you?
I mean, like I say, I have done a lot of work on it, but where to start?
Okay, this is a 20-minute exercise.
No. Okay, so I think the thing that I would say that, you know, that I also identify as having caused a lot of childhood trauma, and that the thing is that I do identify it in myself. That's the problem. I know that I see it in myself, and that's why it also triggers me, is the judgment. It's how judgmental she is. And it's how judgmental she was and is of me. But not just of me, of everybody. And I guess I've already done this. I'm ahead of the game with the exercise because I do see the judgment in myself as well.
And how do you assimilate that, though?
I don't know, because it's true also, right? Like, I mean, that's the funny thing. It's like, it's different when you meet somebody, because I've met other people. I can't think of a direct example. Like, I chose her because she's a really strong example, right? But I can think of other people in my life that I've found judgmental. I'm just trying to think of actual examples, but I can't. But I'm sure that I've come up against judgment in my life, which is clearly a reflection of my own judgment. Although actually I can't think of that many, so maybe not. Anyway, but the point is that I know that they're not directly responsible for also having perpetuated that sense of judgment within me. Whereas with her, like, I know that the reason why I have that judgment is also because of her judgmental behaviour that was also so prevalent in my formative years.
But I mean, if we think about, like, before you were so conscious, right, of this.
Before I was such a conscious being. I mean, yeah, go on.
And
it's hard, Isabel. I mean, I'm just so conscious now.
I know, I'm enlightened one. But if we look at, let's say,
even
relationship
yes, yeah.
The relationship, if we go to the relationship with your daughter, okay, so when your daughter maybe was younger, and, you know, think about how you would have interacted with her. Would you maybe have wanted her to be more perfect than she was?
Definitely.
And you were seeing that for the benefit of her, right? Like, when you would have been speaking to her and given her the parameters in which to be, like, I mean, give me an example so we can actually have a working example.
So what's the question?
With you and your daughter.
Like, where can I see? So basically you're saying, can I see, like, so if judgment's the thing that I observe in my grandma that I dislike, or that I clash against, can I see my own judgment? Is that what you're saying? And where do I see that? Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Yes, no, I do see my own judgment. Well, can it be of myself as well? Or sorry, I'm really bad at sticking to the fucking questions. Well, sorry, yes, I can see my judgment of her. I definitely judged her. I wanted her to be, I don't know, let me think about it now. To try harder in school, for example. Like, to speak more, like in class, they'd always say, like, Zia's very clever, but she, oh, sorry, Zia, I just used your name, but anyway, Zia's very clever, but she doesn't speak up a lot in class, you know. And I would then be like, why don't you speak more in class, you know, and get on her case about it. And tell her that I wanted her to, be more, like, that she was never going to, you know, do as well as she could have if she doesn't contribute, because they're not going to know that she's engaged, for example.
Exactly. Okay, that's a perfect example. And when you were asking that of Zia, okay, and although it was like, it's judgment, when you were asking that of Zia, what were you doing it for? Why? Like,
for her betterment, because I wanted her to do better.
Right. You know, and a lot of parents do that. Like, you know, and I think we spoke about that actually in the episode, where we can often judge our children, but actually we're trying to make them better, so to speak, so they can have be better in the world and have a better life, because that's what we wanted, and so on, right? So so in that way we can understand where it comes from. So now if we go backwards and then we look at your gran, and then we would say like, well, where does she learn judgment? You know, and who spoke to her in that way? You know, who spoke to her in that way?
Well, clearly her parents, obviously, yeah. I mean, she definitely got it from...
Or even at the boarding school. You know, she maybe received a lot more judgment, which is why maybe she is, like, of course, for you and in your life, maybe it hasn't been so harsh, the judgment that you've had, right? Like, it's not something that, you know, you haven't got loads of people around you saying, oh my God, Tārā is so judgy. But like, as you said with your gran, she has quite a few people within the family reflecting that back. But that could also be just because of what the judgment she received maybe was a lot harsher. Of course, you had your mother who maybe was way less judgy with you, so you had something to counterbalance that. So the only point is once we start to understand, oh, actually, well, you can tell me once you appreciate that, you know, your gran also experienced what you experienced, A, and B, you were also the person who was also placing that on your daughter, but in goodwill, obviously, wanting the best for her. What does that then, how does that then change the way that you perceive this situation, the other person, yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps me to understand her more. It helps me to see her humanness. It also helps me to see how ancestral trauma is passed down. Yeah. And
what about for you? Like, for you with regards to Zia, how does that help you?
Well, it helps me to understand where my judgment of her comes from, but also how it's not helpful, because I don't feel like my gran's judgment of me has helped me. So obviously it's both good learning and a good perspective.
Okay.
But it also, like, go on, what were you going to say?
No, carry on.
No, it's like it also just helps me to see how deeply judgment is interwoven into my existence. Like what I've become, or what I've worked with and what I've become aware of is like how triggering I find her judgment must mean that I have a lot of judgment in me, right? Because it's that we see in the other that we find that which in the other we find so abhorrent is generally that which we're judging in ourselves as well, right? Or that we're struggling within ourselves, right? Like I also find that like everything's a reflection of the condition of your own heart, and that's why we also reject it, right? Is that so when I'm like angry at her judgment or seeing her judgment, like, it also just makes me think about where I'm still holding judgment, because I think so, because I mean, I guess what I'm sort of, sorry, I'm taking this sort of onto the a bit more advanced kind of, because it's like, okay, I get it. Like, she is judgmental. She received that judgmental behavior from her ancestors, her parents, her upbringing or whatever. And now it's in me, right? Or like, whatever. And that's been passed down. And now I can forgive her because whatever. But it's like, but it triggers me so much, like deeply triggers me. And in part, that's because it's pulling on the wounds of my childhood trauma, obviously. But as I said, like judgment also is something that triggers me in life. Like, you know, certainly in terms of, if I look at like the wider picture of people judging people based on their race or on their, do you know what I mean? It's something that gets me. I've become an advocate for these things, right, in the world, because I find judgment an abhorrent kind of thing, and therefore I find it abhorrent in her. But I understand that has to be a reflection of something in me, and so I use it as a way to then look at myself and see where I am judgmental, because I feel like I must have a lot of judgment in me. And I think what's helped me is also to understand that judgment of other is judgment of self. And I notice that I judge people all the time, and I judge myself all the time.
Yeah.
Like that I have very high standards. That's basically judgment as well, right? Like of what I think people should be or need to be in order to be good people. Definitely. It's still very deep in me.
Yeah, and it's great that you have that awareness. And in being able to have that awareness and know that actually where it comes from within you, and to be able to forgive, like you did, you actually used the word forgive, right? You're able to forgive your gran because you understand how and why she is that way and where she learnt that behavior. Also then it allows for you to forgive yourself, because that's the way it works as well, because everything is a reflection of our own heart. So in forgiving, we are forgiven, right? So now let's go back to Zia. If we now think about Zia, obviously that was in that early childhood, right? That because obviously you became aware of it. This is something that's grown in your own consciousness. So now this isn't something that Zia's having to contend with in that way, right?
Well, you ask her that. I'm not sure she'll agree, but yeah.
Just speaking for you, Z. So actually, when you then think about her, and I mean, I'm talking to you. I'm very much talking to myself as well. I think about like how things are passed down, right? Like as a mother, so I think about my own mother and things that I've become aware of that she's inflicted on me. But in my awareness and my ability to forgive her is how then when I think about my child looking back at me, I'm able to forgive me through their eyes as well. So it isn't about, as we keep saying as well, it's not about being perfect and it's not about having it completed. It's just that about opening up our hearts to absorb it all. So, to have the awareness and to have the forgiveness. And that's why it's great that we are doing this investigative work as well, because the more that we investigate is the more that we see that, it is reflected from us, and that actually we're like, oh, okay, that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm thinking in this way.
It is really hard. I think I don't want to skip over the reality of how difficult it is to accept that something that you find really harrowing in somebody else's behavior is a reflection of something in you that you're struggling with. And it doesn't have to be either, is it, that it's exactly that's what you are, but it's that's something that you're rejecting within yourself or that you're really struggling with within yourself, right?
Yeah, because if it wasn't something that you were rejecting in yourself, so it's not that you don't see things that that are less than desirable, say, but you don't have you're not triggered by them. That's what it is. That's the difference, is when it's not within you, you're not triggered. You're able just to see it and understand it from a detached point of view. But it's when it's hidden in you that, it's like that, oh, I don't like the way that person's angry, as you get angry about them being angry, and it's like, and when you're able to see that, then of course that.
I mean, that's a funny thing, isn't it? It's like you're judging the judge. I really don't like her judginess. Do you know what I mean? It's like that in itself is just judgy. I mean, I actually have a name for that character, Judgy McJudgeson. That's like basically my judgy character that I have named. It's also helpful to do that sometimes.
Yeah. And, it's beautiful, Tārā, because with you, where you are aware and you're so honest and open with that as well, it just starts to heal. So even though it might be something that you're still working with, and that's fine. You may work with this be something that you're working with for your whole life. Who knows, right? But that awareness helps to heal it, because it just bridges the gap between judgment of other and that judgment within self.
Yeah. I think that's really also been the key. It's like initially it's like, oh, if I'm judging her judgment, then I must be judgy. I must be judgy, and then it's like, oh, realizing that which one does to other is also what one does to oneself. So not only did that make me realize that means that I'm judging myself deeply, which is obviously very true. That's also why it's so triggering when my grand's so judgy, because it's like, I know I'm already judging myself because you put that in me. Now you're judging me and I'm already judging myself. But it also helps me to understand that her judgment also is what she's doing to herself. So her judgment of other is also judgment of self. So she's also judging herself. Like it's all like many, many mirrors, right? Just like constant reflections of each other.
Yeah, because that's exactly it. Because there's one self, right? So this is this is your experience as well. So this idea of there being other, and when we look at it like that, we almost see ourselves as a victim to them, as opposed to this is what I came for, to deal with my judgment, and they were there to help me deal with my judgment by being judgy, right? Not. Do you know what I mean? Because that's always a funny one as well when we see things too physical. We miss the point that actually it was always us. We asked them to be here to teach us this lesson because we wanted to learn this lesson of non-judgment and we wanted to grow and open our hearts. That's, so, and when we look at it like that, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think it's also really important to remember that it doesn't have to look the same, because I know that like I'm not going to adhere to the fact that my behavior is the same as hers. Bless her heart, love her. But, there's a level of extremity in her judgment that I don't think that I'm displaying, right? And I say that not to make myself better than or feel better. It's just that I think that sometimes in different relationships, you might be looking at somebody, like if someone was to do this exercise, I'm just thinking about that, and they're, like what behavior do you really dislike? Right. And that we're saying, well, that's because it's a reflection of yourself, right? That people might be like, but I'm not abusive like that, or I'm not, do you know what I mean? And it's like I could have initially, like when we first, like this feels very uncharged now because I've been working with this relationship for like 10 years or more. I've had awareness of this, situation. Then I've been unpacking it. But also, and it's also someone that I love as well, right? But it's like, but on other, with other relationships, you might just be like, no, there's no way that I'm like that. I'm not abusive. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not.
Okay, let me stop you there though, and let me ask you something. But can you say that you're not that abusive to yourself, or would you have to admit that actually you've abused yourself probably worse than what your grand's abused you over the years?
That's true.
In your judgment. Exactly, because we see it as other, like that's exactly what we're saying, right? But we have to remember, really, we'll just open up our own hearts to ourselves, the one self as well. So it is it's not a straightforward conversation. And of course, I'm not expecting somebody to listen to this exercise and then suddenly be able to maybe in this moment heal
Why not?
all of what they're seeing.
They can. Anything's possible.
It may take for them to go away and have a bit of and actually be able to see this play out and actually take ownership for themselves as well, and actually hear where this resonates within themselves. Because that's the thing, if it didn't exist within us, it couldn't exist in the outside world on some level, right? And it's not about blame, but it is about responsibility. And that's what this episode once again was about, is non-judgment and responsibility. So just going into this exercise, which maybe I should have framed at the start, but anyway, going into this exercise in this way will enable you to really take something out of it, and be able to see how, of course, it's all for you. I mean, this whole lifetime is actually for us, and so that we can be in more joy. I mean, that's what we're having this experience for. So yeah.
No, and I don't you judge your exercise, Isabel, or getting better. But like, honestly, to sit and to really challenge yourself with the people that you really struggle with the most in your life, and to see how that is a reflection of you. And that last point that you made is so valid as well, because it's not necessarily how you're behaving towards quote unquote the other, as you say, because it's all self, but how you're turning that behavior on yourself. I think it's such a powerful thing to understand, and it does just lead to greater compassion for self and compassion for other, which is one and the same thing.
Yeah, and it's also true, sometimes these exercises are better done in twos, because sometimes by ourselves we block ourselves, right? Because we're carrying all the emotional baggage that goes with that idea, and we're unable to embrace ourselves and the idea all at once. So maybe this exercise you want to do with somebody else, or maybe
I love that paradox, right? So we're all one, but we need the other one, the other self, to be able to. I mean, that's just that is exactly it. That is the beauty of it all, right? It's like we're all reflections of the oneness, and we need all of those reflections to be able to bring ourselves into greater wholeness.
Yeah, and that's why we've come in this way, in fragmented parts of the whole. So that's, what a beautiful life it is that we live. So wrapping up on that, hopefully that, please let us know if you get, please have a go at the exercise and try and be as open as possible. And remember, at the end of the day, it's all about coming into greater love. That's why we do the work, is so that we can embrace ourselves further, right? And so let us know what comes up for you in the comments. We'd love to hear. And thank you for being with us here today. We love you all and wish you a blessed day.
That's love.
Thank
you.
Ciao.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the meditation for this episode. So, finding yourself in a comfortable position, you can be lying down or sitting, just making sure you're really comfortable, and taking a few moments to connect inward, to connect to the breath, to become aware of everything that is coming up. Taking deep breaths into the belly, into a beautiful softening belly, and releasing. Making sure that the shoulders are relaxed and down, that the muscles of the face are relaxed, that any areas of tension in the body you send a little bit of love to, and without impatience or force, just ask them to relax. On every deep inhalation into the pit of the belly, allowing the breath to extend a little bit longer, allowing the awareness to come deeper within, allowing yourself to become aware of all of the life within you. And on the exhalation, just letting it all go. Becoming aware of yourself supported by the beautiful earth beneath you. Becoming aware of this beautiful spine off which everything else is suspended. Becoming aware of the beautiful stars shining down upon you, flooding their magic onto you. Becoming aware of yourself as an energetic being held in the universe. As you relax deeper and deeper into the inner awareness, allowing yourself to bring your breath into your heart space, allowing your breath to enter your heart, to fill your heart, and allowing yourself to become aware of how the heart is feeling right here and right now. There's no wrong, there's no right. Just coming into an awareness of how the heart is feeling in the here and now, without judgment or second guessing, Just allow yourself to speak that feeling into the space. Say it out loud. It might be easier to use a color or a sensation. Allow yourself to feel deeply into what your heart is feeling right here, right now. Allowing yourself to imagine a beautiful, bright, golden light bathing your heart. Imagine this light coming from below and above, from all sides, surrounding you in a beautiful golden egg and penetrating deep, deep into your heart. With every inhalation, the golden light in your heart grows brighter. And with every exhalation, your heart is able to relax more and more into the golden rays. As this golden light shines into your heart and fills your heart up, the light spills over from your heart into the rest of your body. Allow this beautiful golden light from your heart to penetrate to all of the dark places, all of the dark spaces within your heart and around your heart. Can you allow yourself to look at your life right now from the place of this light? How do you see it? When you allow yourself to witness your life from the place of this light, how do you feel your life to be? Allow yourself to speak this reality into the space. Try not to judge, try not to falter. Allow the truth to come forth from this place of golden light. If you find it too hard to see your life from this place of light, don't worry. Just continue to breathe the golden light into your heart, allowing the light to spill over as much as you can. As you continue to feel bathed in this beautiful golden light, become aware of any places in your body that are feeling unloved. Any places in your body where the golden light refuses to penetrate. Any places in your body that are feeling particularly unhappy or ugly, heavy or judged, rejected. Allow yourself to breathe into this feeling of darkness and rejection in the body. And speak that rejection you feel towards that part of yourself. Speak the words that come immediately to you. Allow them to sit in the space with you. Can you observe your life right now from the perspective of this dark place, from these feelings of judgment and rejection? Can you let these feelings influence the way you see your entire life? Speak this out into the space now if you can, if it's not too painful. Allow yourself to feel that reality, that version of your reality. Allow yourself to feel into the resonance within your body. Allow yourself to notice the difference between the golden light perspective and the dark perspective on the same life. Taking a deep exhalation, releasing, and coming back to your beautiful heart. Coming back to the golden light shining in your heart space, and with every breath allowing the golden light in your heart to grow a little bit brighter, a little bit stronger, a little bit deeper. I invite you to extend this beautiful golden light from your heart to encompass that part of your body that you saw as dark or separate. I want you to imagine threads or rays of this golden light coming out from your heart all the way to that part of you that feels unloved or in darkness. I invite you to see the golden light weaving itself around that part of you and bringing it back to your heart. It's okay if it stays in darkness or pain, but now it is encompassed in the golden light that keeps it safely tethered to this beautiful golden light of your heart. Give yourself space and time to allow this weaving of golden light, this weaving of your heart space to that part, or maybe it's many parts of you that feel disconnected. Allow them to integrate with every breath. Allowing yourself to tune in to this feeling of greater coherence. Allowing yourself to breathe into this woven golden matrix within you. How does it feel to see your life now from this more cohesive perspective? Can you speak this into the space? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. It doesn't have to be completely healed and without darkness, but simply an acknowledgement of any shift, any movement, an acknowledgement of how you're viewing your world just right now and right here. Slowly bringing your awareness back to the surface of your skin. Bringing your awareness back to your body being supported by the earth beneath you. Bringing your awareness back to what you can smell around you. Bringing your awareness back to what you can taste in your mouth. Bringing your awareness back to what you can feel on your skin and within you. Bringing your awareness back to what you can hear in the space that you're in and in the wider beyond. Gently allowing your eyes to flutter open to bring your awareness to what it is that you can see. Giving yourself a hug, a squeeze, a shake. Maybe taking a moment to journal, have a good glass of water. Thank you so much for joining in this practice. I love you.
Thank you so much for listening to Embodying Spirit with Tārā Love and Isabel Almeida. This podcast is brought to you by Rewire Desire and the Conscious Connection community. Please see the links to our social media and websites in the show notes to connect more and access our other offerings. This podcast is brought to you free of charge to spread the love and light we all so deeply need in these times of transition. If you feel abundant, safe, and in a space to be able to give from, we would deeply appreciate your support to sustain this gift. Please follow the link below to make a donation. If you would like to connect deeper and would consider becoming a more active partner, then please reach out to us. We look forward to you tuning in again with us soon. Love always, Tārā and Isabel.